Welcome to episode 80 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I've been joined each week except the last two because I wasn't here, by my co-host, Doug Griffin.
I was here.
You were here?
I tried to do it, but I don't have the equipment. So anyway, Happy New Year, Tony.
Happy New Year.
And thankfully, we're on to a little bit warmer weather. So at least it's out of freezing today. So
Right, it was brutal for a couple days there.
Even though the sun was out, it just was a cold time, at least for here.
Yeah, we were actually talking about you on my other podcast yesterday because I was out of town. Todd DeHart, who I do the other podcast with, was telling me, well, why didn't you and Doug set up like you used to do and go like back and forth? And I said, well, because Doug's not like me. He won't just put any garbage out. He would have to rebuild the whole he'd have to rebuild the whole internet because he couldn't handle like the little hiccups.
All the jitters.
I said, and I would come home and like he would have rebuilt the entire infrastructure. And I couldn't put that much pressure on him. So we just had to let it go for a couple of days. But we are coming to you now in HD, and we don't know how long. But for now, we're in HD, and we're very excited.
Much better quality, I think.
Yeah, we've switched over to YouTube, and for those of you that found us, we didn't have too many subscribers, so I don't think it'll be too hard. But we've switched over to the Shorecraft Beer YouTube channel because they have one, and mine was not as good. So anyway, we're on a better channel. We're in a better year because it's the year that's happening now, not the year that already happened. And we're all ready to go.
Sounds good.
Do you have any holiday stories? Did you have any fun beers over the holiday?
No, not really. It was just uneventful. So no, don't have any wonderful stories of Christmas or New Year's. So
I got a couple good beers for Christmas, and I cannot remember one of them, but I have one. They're both. Oh, one was one of the brew dogs, those Scottish guys. Mm-hmm. They did a double IPA. It was perfectly acceptable. But there's another one that I didn't bring because I'm on the wagon this week. I overdid it a little bit.
You had too good a time.
Oh, God, I just abused myself. So anyway, I'm on the wagon this week. But next week I thought I'd bring it to share because it's an England beer.
Oh, all right.
It's an England beer from England. English beer from England.
England beer, huh?
Right, England beer. My daughter got it actually in Annapolis. There's a bottle shop there that carries a lot of English import ale. So we'll bring it over. I don't know anything about it except that I have it and now I want to share it. So
wonderful.
I'll remember it and we'll bring it. Otherwise, I'll bring it in 6 months. So lots of stuff to talk about this week. Just real quick, I want to plug the Shorecraft Beer Festival Love on Tap, which is at Secrets on February 20th. Tickets, we already are. So we haven't even confirmed all the breweries, and we're already selling tickets. I think it's going to be a huge event, which is very cool. We sold 3 tickets before the site went live. Is
that the holiday weekend?
That's the weekend after.
Weekend after.
Secrets opens on the 11th, and the 13th is the Valentine's Day weekend, and then the 20th is when we're having it. And there's lots of stuff going on.
Valentine's or President's Day is what I was
I'm sorry. It's President's Day.
Okay. So it is the weekend.
It is that holiday weekend. Yes. So it's going to be
I didn't say which holiday.
But there's a couple other things that are going on.
Your heart is it's Valentine's Day.
Well, it's called. It's. This is the first time I'm involved in organizing this, and it's not my wheelhouse. Organizing. I'm really good at. Like I was telling Todd, I'm very good at. You do something, and then I tell other people what you did.
You actually have to do it now.
Having to do something isn't my strong suit, but it's going pretty well.
Yeah,
anyway, we'll have more on that next week, and maybe even some guests. I accidentally spoke with some people in Virginia who we may be able to have on the show from a brewery called the Big Ugly Brewing Company.
Never not heard of it.
I haven't either. What happened was
where in Virginia?
Chesapeake, Virginia.
Okay. Okay,
but they came up when I was looking for Chesapeake Brewing because I was having trouble getting in touch with Carolyn and Dave. And I said, oh, maybe they changed the name. So I'm like, hey, why'd you change your name? When's the beer coming out? What's going on? And the guy sent me an email back. He's like, what in the hell are you talking about? And that's when it came out that he's a different brewery altogether. But I had already invited him on the show. And I'm like, yeah, we'll have you on after the beer festival and everything's cool. So all sorts of stuff in the news this week. Were there anything you wanted to talk about first?
No, don't have anything here.
Any of these stories you were interested in covering first?
I thought the interesting one was Halifax with the old beer, the ancient beer.
That was a fun story. So if you if you take a look at our shorecraftbeer.com website, we have all links to all of the stories that we're talking about now, if you care to follow along. And also, as always, if you care to ask questions, let me see if you can still ask questions, or if I forgot to set that up. Yes, if you care to ask questions, feel free. We'll take your questions and we will respond to them. So anyway, they found this beer while they were scuba diving.
120-year-old beer. So, and I'd like to taste that. Just to see something that old. And actually, if it's in the water, it's fairly well preserved, because temperatures would be more constant than, say,
right,
a house or a cave or something. So
yeah, and it was. I don't know how it got to the bottom and was watertight.
No, in a bottle. I mean,
I guess the bottle was just heavier than that little bit of air, because they
oh yeah, sure, yeah. I mean, that little bit of air in there is not going to keep that bottle up. So whatever happened, whether the ship sank or
somebody just knocked it over,
right.
Some fisherman's like, "Hey, where'd my beer go?" And what's cool about that is that they were just going to extract the yeast and try to make more. Was that what you got from that? Or it looked like I'm sorry, the guy was just going to keep it, and his homebrewer friend's like, no, his brewer friend was
we
like,
got to try it.
Got to try it. I was doing the year in review this year, and I went through a couple of different, and I can't imagine. I mean, we had the brain beer. I can't imagine something that I flat dead wouldn't try, like a beer that I was like, I don't have any interest in seeing what that tastes like. You know what I mean? But it was cool so they extracted it, and I think that they're going to try to make some.
I don't know how. Yeah, I guess they could try to come up with a recipe, but the yeast would have been dead at that point. I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I don't think it's survived that length of time.
And so, do you think it would be like dispersed? Do you think that they could get out yeast and just see what strain that was in there, or?
I don't know how that works. Yeah, I know different strains they can visually know what strains they are these days by just looking at them, because every yeast looks a little different,
right,
cell-wise. But it's possible, I guess, that they could get something from that bottle and look at it and see if they could match it up to a current day yeast strain
or something like that. Well, we're hoping to do one for the book. Ed and I are Ed. I say Ed and I, but it's really Ed. I actually may get in touch with the guy who did the Delaware Brewing book, because he's in touch with the Steckel family, and if he can get his hands on a recipe, maybe we'll do something together, and that'll be a fun deal. But there were also different ingredients. You remember they had like was it rose hips? What was in there?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Well, let's take a look. They had different ingredients in there, and you got to love the headline where it says he's just glad it wasn't pea.
Yeah,
that
was what caught my attention.
Cherries. That's what it had. It was a cherry flavored. So you wonder, and what do you think?
It just shows you even the older breweries were using different ingredients at that time. So
yeah, a lot of times when I give talks, people are they're like, why do they make cherry beers now, or why do they make pumpkin beers now? I'm like, well, they've been making pumpkin beers since
for a long
since they've been making pumpkins, essentially. Now, what do you think the sulfur is? What do you think would give it a kind of a sulfuric flavor? Or
I don't know. It's just been sitting so long.
Just sitting so long. I mean, talk about
something probably created that, but who knows what the conditions were to have. I mean, maybe the cherries did. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when was the last time you had a 150-year-old cherry?
Never.
One of the things that I was joking about when I wrote up the little intro was that, if you see a beer in the store that's been on the shelf for a year, you're like, oh, that's gross. But you see one that's been
one reason maybe down there, because it was sulfur and they didn't like it.
Yeah, the whole batch was bad.
Yeah.
They dumped the whole batch. So. It was that'd be great. You're like the world's oldest drain port. They're like, you know what? We'd rather go thirsty.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a fun story of beer in the news. If you have any beer in the news that you care to share with us, please send it along to us to me, I guess, at Shorecraft Beer on the website, and we'll or through this new Google page that we're using, and we'll address it. The next story we want to talk about is the purity.
Sure.
Okay. Tell us what. So this was just a blog, really. It wasn't really a news story, but I thought it was fun to talk about. This one magazine was calling for the repeal of the Reinheitsgebot laws, which are the
German purity law,
right.
which says only beers that have barley, water, yeast, and hops in it are allowed.
Right.
But they also do allow wheat. So, but I think the blogs, the whole thing was that there's a lot of German beer drinkers now that aren't drinking traditional beers because they want the ones that are available from imports that
right.
are more different than what they have there. So I think that's the way we all are. We want to try something different. And
right.
I guess because the German purity law doesn't allow them to add the different ingredients that you would normally, that are available
right.
in other areas. So the imports are outpacing or starting to outpace the Germans.
Yeah, well, what I think is fun about this is that, you know, give it another 20 years and people be saying, how come they don't make traditional? I mean, the reason we're drinking all of these English ales now is because we drank German beer for too long, and just the pendulum's swinging the other way. Right. Yeah. Personally, I feel like, you know, as long as they're, you know, I'm trying to think, what's a major German beer, like Heineken, right? Heineken.
But Schneider makes, I know they're big. We've gone to the Munich, they have a beer house.
Right.
Hofbrauhaus, of course.
Oh yeah. So they're not closing anytime soon.
Right.
I think that they're remaining competitive.
But yeah. I mean, Snyder's not, I don't think, a huge company, but you can get it here.
Mm-hmm.
The main thing there, I think, import are wheat beers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm going to take a chance. My brother doesn't watch this because I know he doesn't watch this. But he's his birthday party. He's having a surprise birthday party. And it's going to be at a German beer garden up in Jersey City, and I've never been. So I told my wife, I'm like, we're getting a hotel room. There's not going to be any
beer by
conversation. Yes, I'll be down. I believe it or not, just cutting out booze and watching what I ate, I've lost 6 pounds this week since I've gotten back from New Jersey. I mean, 5 of it was bloat. But
there's lots of calories in that beer.
Yeah, I started misbehaving a little bit before Christmas, and I was doing a lot of drinking, and I was doing a lot of eating, and you know, we have a lot of cheese. Cheese is a big thing, and I love cheese so much. And we're having a cheese tasting. Did you see that at all?
No, I did not.
So the Surecraft Beer folks, and I'd like to talk to you about this a little bit, are having a cheese tasting where we're going to have some brewers come out, and all the brewers that come are going to bring a cheese that they think goes well with their beer.
Good.
Yeah, I'd like to. And this was my idea. That's why I'm pushing it so hard. But I'd like to try to talk more about mixing flavors. You know, and everybody's always like, let's pair it with some big. I can't go to beer pairing dinners because I don't eat a lot of meat. And there are always these huge dinners that, you know, are really complex. And I'm like, well, why don't we just make it a little bit more simple? Like, because I love beer and cheese are one of my favorite combinations. And I've never had a cheese and not try to figure out what kind of beer goes with it. And what I don't like to put you on the spot because we haven't talked about it in first, but do you have any like general rules? Do you have particular cheeses that you like to have with particular beers or any of those things?
Not really, but I can see where especially some of the stronger tasting cheeses would go with different beers.
Yeah.
A lot of the cheeses are so light in, you know, character and flavor that I don't think it makes a huge difference, but a lot of it, just the stronger beers that you can get, stronger cheeses have to be able to hold up to some of those beers you're going to drink.
Right. The first time it happened to me, when I noticed how well beer and cheese paired together, was actually back in New Jersey before I was really drinking very much craft beer. But I was having a Sam Adams because I would treat myself occasionally to a Samuel Adams, which seemed outrageously expensive at the time. But I was in my 20s, you know. and so I had a Samuel Adams with sharp cheddar and with cheddar and like a piece of onion, and it was just all the flavors together. I'm like, wow, this is so much better than it would have been with like a Bud Light you know, with the
right.
and that was the first time I started thinking about how beer and cheese go together. So we've had a couple people say that they're in, and they've even started to send along some cheese recommendations. We hope to flesh that out before the next 2 weeks are over. But one of them is a Red Dragon cheese. Have you? I've never even heard of Red Dragon. I looked it up on the internet. It's such a thing. I don't know.
Is it from the U.S. or is it imported? Or?
I just confirmed that they were talking. It's Mississippian, and they're like Red Dragon and one of our IPAs. And I said, "Well, is that a brand?" And they're like, "No, it's a cheese." And I looked up, and yeah, it's a cheese.
So. I know that in Europe, it seems like you have such more variety of cheeses available than you do here.
You've got to make a real effort here. We go to when we're in New Jersey, we pick some up. If you go to the higher end grocery stores like Harris Teeter, you know, you can get some cheese. Giant here in Salisbury, you can get some good cheeses, but and it's funny. I don't know if it's causal if we made it happen, but Sam's Club in Salisbury always gets in for Christmas. They always get in a bunch of really, really interesting cheeses. But it's really just for Christmas. Like if you want it in August, you're out of luck. Yeah. Which is just as well. I don't need it in August. I barely need it in December. But the other thing is that, and again, we're off topic a little bit, but how has the cheese been going? Do you have cheese classes here? We
have not had any cheese classes. We have not been able to find anybody who is knowledgeable enough that will do a cheese class for us. Mm-hmm. We're beginners ourselves and have been making cheese, but not for a very long, just for the last year is the only thing we've been making cheese for, and don't feel qualified to really to give a class.
Right.
We did talk to one lady who's been making cheese for a couple of years. Even she said, I don't feel comfortable trying to instruct somebody that I've only, been scratching the surface of
for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do have the supplies, and we do make stuff at home for ourselves. But
and how does it taste? Are you happy with it? What do you make? Just cottage cheese and ricotta, or
mostly mozzarella, but ricotta. It's the thing is, we found that if you sometimes, because of what you're doing, you make ricotta instead of mozzarella. They're the easiest. The hard cheeses are take a little bit more effort and take longer to age.
Right. And that's one of those things. Like I was talking to Jason at Tall Tales, the owner of Tall Tales, and I said, "So why aren't you doing whiskey yet?" And he's like, "Don't say that in front of my wife." But he said one of the things is like, you want to do whiskey. He's like, "But really, if I'm going to make a good whiskey, I'm going to be 80 years old before I get to try it." And also, I get a little plug. If you want to buy vodka and then make it taste like whiskey. You guys sell flavorings now. I saw that outside.
Yes, we do. And not just for whiskeys, but we've got a whole pack of different flavors that you can add to that, to whatever flavor you want. Plus rums and other flavorings.
I got to think out of it. Have you tried any of them? Do you know what they taste like? Or they taste like?
Not recently. We have done them in the past, but not from anything. We're not distillers. We make beer and wine, but we've bought the Everclear, the higher alcohol vodkas, and added things to it, and they taste pretty good.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to have to try some because I always say if they ever made non-alcoholic, if they ever made non-alcoholic bourbon, that's all I would drink. And I guess now they do, right? I wonder, what do you think it would taste like in water? Could you add that to water or soda or?
I would assume you may have to have a little bit of alcohol in order to have it mixed, but I guess you could add it, but it's not going to have that burn that normally you would have.
And that's what people always say to me. They're like, but what about the burn? And I'm like, well, if you think about it, like the really, really, really high end stuff barely has any burn at all. It's just that nice smooth.
But even a lot of the whiskeys that you do get, they recommend cutting it with a little bit of water so it's not so intense, but you get more. Brings those flavors out.
Yeah, with single malt scotches, I hear you're supposed to just a couple drops of water just to loosen it up. Had a couple of good scotches. I had too much to drink over the weekend. I don't know if I mentioned that or not.
Not just beer. Huh?
Not just beer. A friend of mine, and again, because I know a friend of mine was gifted a bottle of a single malt scotch, but it was smoky, and he knows the difference. Like Lowlands, I think, is not smoky, and Highlands is smoky. Or
the biggest thing I found when we went there is the West Coast dries their malt with peat, where the East Coast dries their malt with coal.
And that's the difference between how much smoke you get? Or?
Yeah, for the most part.
Well, then this was a West Coast because it was very, very
I know
smoky.
there are highlands and lowlands, and they're all different, make different flavors in how they process the grain. So.
And so we each had a glass, and the woman who gave it to him was there, and he's like, "Thank you very much." And then he's like, when she didn't leave, he's like, "You can drink as much of that as you want because I don't like the smoky." And so I drank half a bottle of that. The evening was over. When I woke up in the morning and I saw how much of that scotch was gone, I almost had a heart attack. I'm like, where'd it go? Yeah, I like to think at least a couple other people had a couple other glasses. I don't know what happened, but it was a fun
So
weekend.
is it acceptable?
Oh, I enjoyed it. If you like scotch, I enjoyed it so much. When he saw how much was left, he's like, "Yeah, take it home." So
Yeah. Wow.
if you'd like, I can bring scotch. We'll have a drinking party. I don't know. How do you feel about scotch? Do you enjoy scotch or?
Not a whole lot. I still like my beer and wines and don't partake too much of the heavy stuff. Once in a while, we'll get a little bit out, but I'm just not into that much of it.
Well, a friend of mine owns a cigar store, and he doesn't drink any of that stuff. He doesn't drink. He's like I'm like,
he likes to smoke, and then
I mean, he doesn't even drink decent beer. He just drinks Bud Light with $70 cigar.
Yeah.
Well, you know what we always say.
Oh yeah, what?
That's
right up there. Where is it? Yeah, drink we like and be happy. Yeah, I keep forgetting that.
And we didn't have, or are we having the wrong conversation? So this is the last one. I don't know how we're doing on time because I started early.
Yeah, and it's afternoon. So.
Yeah, but we'll kind of blow through this really quickly. We talk about this a lot, and this is the number of breweries. A number of breweries have been purchased by Anheuser-Busch and Miller.
Right.
And it's funny, the ones that are purchased by Miller are now owned by Busch anyway, right? Didn't they?
Yeah, because of their merger with SAB, they had to divest some of that. So.
Right.
But the biggest thing I noticed on here, like I said before, is the amount that AB InBev have bought in the last, year, I think this is. Anyway, it was 6 of them. 6 out of 10 were bought by AB InBev. So,
and these are the breweries that you'll see on the list. What they're saying is that in the press release, they're like, nothing will change, nothing will change, nothing will change. And what the author argues is that what changes is, people expect craft beer to be local, and they don't expect it from a big conglomerate. And I appreciate the argument. I think that it's the wrong one. I think, again, we're creating the market for it. Like if you're demanding, that if you want to try the new Stone beer, or if I want to try the new Brewdog's beer and I'm not in Ohio, I'm creating that demand. So you can't have it both ways. You can't expect these people to grow so that you can have any beer you want whenever you want and not
have it local.
And also have it local. So if you're going to argue for local beer, then you've got to argue against expansion, which I do. I mean, I don't think every brewery needs to expand. I mean, I'm happy. Lots of great local beers here. They're expanding over at Third Wave, but I don't know how big they're going to get. They seem like they want to stay.
One big thing here is estimated price of what they paid for it. I mean, I'm not sure, in the big scope of things, if these are big dollars for AB InBev, but $127 million.
Well, yeah, look at, that's undisclosed. Ballast Point.
Yeah. $1 billion.
I mean, if someone came to you and said, for $1 billion, you're going to have to give up your job. I mean, that's tough.
I think I could do it for a while.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough money to give up. I mean,
if they've got shareholders,
they've got
investors, and the investors say, yeah, I'll take my money and run. It's tough to turn down.
It really is. And, and one of the other things I took issue with is for a guy like me who doesn't have to get up and go. I mean, brewing isn't just like pro brewing isn't like home brewing. You don't just hang around with your friends and, clean up at the end. The cleanup takes like 6 hours. I mean, it is manual labor.
But you got to come down to it. It's business.
It's their job. Yeah.
Investors especially.
You can't love it enough for the investors to say, you know, which is why I actually, we were talking about this, the Dogfish Head, which is one of our biggest local, is our biggest local brewery. They had some capital investors, and that's like a different, it's like a different structure. It's almost like a private loan more than it is like people buying parts of the company.
15% of what they
so they can't say we're going to take we want our money now. There's a structured deal where they'll get their money. So because Dogfish, Budweiser, I'm sure would pay $1 billion for Dogfish, but they're not. It's not worth it to them because he likes what he's doing, which is something else. And that's the other thing. You know, if these guys, a lot of guys they like to brew, and then they're like, okay, I didn't want to be the president of a company. I wanted to be a brewer, you know, and they're not getting their hands dirty often enough, or they're not doing enough of the creative process. You know, it gets boring, and they want to do other things, and $1 billion will help.
Well, you go back and look at what Anheuser-Busch had a lot of stock at, and that's how InBev was able to buy them up.
Right.
Some of these companies may have the same situation where they have investors or stockholders, and the stockholder says, take that, I want that money.
Yeah.
So they don't have a choice. Well, I'm assuming that Dogfish is totally owned by the Sam and his management team, so they're more secure.
Right. And so, I just noticed here that Lagunitas went for $1 billion, and that seems like a lot for that.
Well, if you can't beat them, you buy them out.
I guess.
You know.
Yeah.
Maybe InBev must have lots of money.
Yeah. Well, that one actually went to Heineken, which is which is a smaller massive company. I don't know.
Smaller massive.
Right. But there's also sorts of other stuff that we didn't get to talk about because I knew we were going to be short on time because I haven't seen Doug in 2 weeks. Yeah. But there's lots of there's not merger stuff, but there's a lot of import things in England that are interesting. They're the import. We touched a little bit on imports into Germany of American beers, but it's important to remember that we are exporting beer at Europe. We couldn't make enough beer today to support the demand in Europe, and
that's why some of the U.S. companies have now put breweries in.
Right, it's easier to just put a brewery there and make it because it
reduces shipping costs.
Yeah, and tariffs, and and I'm sure they're getting tax incentives to do it there.
But the main thing to remember is all our local breweries are still local.
All our local breweries are still local, and I would, we have Ocean City Brewing Company and Chesapeake Brewing Company have both opened pubs on the Western Shore. Chesapeake is opening one in Annapolis, which I think will be great for us. And they've promised to carry the show. I don't know if they're really going to or not, but I hope they do. On an endless loop or something. Can you imagine having to listen to me on a loop for 4 hours while you're having dinner? I mean, I can listen to me for 4 hours while I'm having dinner. As a matter of fact, I often do. But so they're doing that. I like that. We've been talking about a lot, that kind of smart expansion where it's just the whole brewery goes. Up in New Jersey, actually, Triumph Brewery, which is in Princeton, was opening another one in Red Bank. And my brother, who's getting into the beer business now, he's working for a distributor.
Oh wow! Okay.
He's distributing us. He is there only he carries the kegs to stores.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
small distributor,
right?
Yeah.
So he was talking about how it's going to be a different beer, and I'm like, yeah, but that's kind of the point. The point is like Iron Hill we were talking about. They have a couple places make beer. Each place makes 2 beers, let's say, to send to the other places, but then they make beers that you can only get there. And I think that especially from a beer traveler perspective, there's nothing like that. I mean, I like to find places where they have a beer that I can't get when I'm home, because that's kind of the point.
Right. Try different beers.
And with that, we're going to call it a day. If you'd like to have the tagline for us.
Oh, drink what you like and be happy.
Be happy. We'll see you next week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.